And yeah, I'm so happy to have you both here because in my journey to creating CS Angel, you were two of the first people I called. I think I called maybe Rachel first and Alex second because of the time zone, Alex. Okay. But I'm very, very grateful for you being here and helping us inspire others to go on the path to owning something. So let's talk about that origin story because I think we've obviously talked about it before, but there's some similarities in them in how we started these businesses. And Alex, you started back in COVID, right? So that must have been an interesting time to start an events company effectively. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, interesting is a good euphemism. Stupid is the word I use. No, I'm joking, of course, but it was more just the fact that I had more time on my hands to actually get the ball rolling. I had always, I think for a year prior, had the idea in my mind that the customer success community is really kicking off. We've got great conferences, but a lot of the conferences are delivered by vendors, which is fine, but there wasn't kind of an independent event. And B, we have a lot of people that maybe deserve to be recognized for their great work, but aren't talking about it, right? So that kind of, and then I guess the selfish reason is nobody had done it yet and felt like some interesting first mover advantage, let's call it. And that kind of came to a head where I had a minute to think during the first COVID lockdown. I was also in my notice period for my job. So I had left that company 2 months in. So I had even more time on my hands to really kind of get the website out there and share the idea with the world. And I was also inspired by the community. I, like many of us, I think, kind of really dived deep into the gain, grow, retain CS office hours that kind of really came, into existence around COVID and getting CS leaders together virtually to figure out how we're going to navigate this. Is the economy crashing? Is everybody going to cancel their contract? And that led to a lot of interesting conversations with CS leaders, but also a bunch of one-on-one virtual network sessions that kind of happened from May onward. And I got to meet a lot of great people, a lot of whom became the judges for the awards. And really, it kind of became a big tent community event because of that lockdown and that vibrancy of community that popped up as a result of it. So then we got the website launched, put the plan in motion, and the rest is history, to use a cliche. I'm sure we'll get into the nitty gritty shortly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as well, I think it was like kind of a now or never situation when you built it, right? We had talked about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think it was an hour never, or that's a nice way to put it. I think it was one of those things where I didn't really think about the future. I kind of put it out there to the world. And once you ring the bell of, hey, we're going to do this event, and you get a website out there, it's hard to unring the bell. So I kind of married myself to actually following through pretty early before I realized what like a non-lockdown life and balance might look like. But yeah, so it was kind of, some say now or never, others say, you've, I don't know what the other version of that is, but yeah, let's call it now or never. That's fine.
Thank you for sharing that, Alex. And Rachel, can you tell us a little bit more about your origin story? Because had you left your role before you started Proven Success?
I had left a role basically for mental health reasons because it was not great. It literally was affecting my physical health. Like I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. And I've been in CS leadership for 15 years and I've had a couple toxic jobs, as I'm sure plenty of people have experienced. And I'm pretty tough. So to bring me down takes a lot. But thankfully I had a little bit saved up. I was like, I found that since 2020, it was just kind of a bleep show in terms of what was being asked of CS leaders and just the job market in general. And I was like, I'm going to be really, really intentional about the next job I take. Like, I know the red flags. I had started writing online, on LinkedIn really before knowing what I was going to do with it. Yeah. Other than just like, I wanted to get out of a previous job that I got during COVID that was not great. And bear in mind, like I was doing great things for these companies. I just wasn't very happy. So I'm kicking butt and I'm miserable. Like I love my team, but just really frustrated. So I got a lot of offers. I got a lot of interviews. It was early 2022. It was like there's so many jobs, and I kept being like, no, no.
Mm.
like, um, and during that time, I was like, well, this is taking a little longer than I thought, but people are asking me, so that's good. But I should probably make a little money in the meantime. And a couple people after I had started writing on LinkedIn were just like, hey, you know a lot. Would you coach me? No, they were like, do you do any coaching? I was like, yes. Um,
Mhm.
so, I had like one coaching client, and then I was like, I really like this. Maybe I'll build a website, you know? And I built a website, and I knew that what I wanted to do. I've always known that I wanted to help CS leaders because it's such a tough gig. And it's like I think about helping myself, like the one who just got steamrolled early on. Like I bumped my head on everything. And if I had just had someone to be like, no, no, this is how it works, do it this way, instead of just figuring it out the hard way, that would be huge. And I did that for my direct reports. And I tended to create like a whole little team of directors. And after I would leave a place, they'd all go and get great director jobs and do great. So I was like, this is kind of who I want to help.
Yeah.
And but the funny thing is, they tell you not to do something that isn't already really out there and popular. And I was like, I know this is a hole in the market. I know it's not that people don't want it. I know it's a hole in the market. And I knew that I wanted to work with CS leaders, not like as a consultant for companies. I wanted to work with the leaders to help them
Individual.
individually.
Yeah.
And that, I'd be targeting them and not necessarily the companies, so that can impact my bottom line. But I was so passionate about it, and I'm still so passionate about it. And it took a little while, we'll talk about that, but it was like, oh, this is rough. This is rough. I'm working harder than I have ever have in my entire life, and I'm broke. And then all of a sudden it just like hit this inflection point, and I went from having like 3 clients to 15
Wow.
one-on-one clients. And and then it just kind of snowballed, and it has been an absolute rocket ship from there, and so much freaking fun. Like I'm so inspired every day.
Congratulations. It is very inspiring, your story. And I'm sure it's like also quite cathartic being able to help people who are living experience that you yourself went through that was extremely
Yeah.
traumatic. So yeah, awesome. Awesome. And you mentioned like people came to you and asked you if you could do it. So was that your process of validating the business concept?
I mean, I kind of knew I could do it because I was doing it with my direct reports previously,
Yeah.
both teaching them, coaching them, and I have a teaching background from way back when, but I did a full like validation of it by going on LinkedIn and being like, hey, would this interest anyone? Um, and if so, would anyone get on a call with me? I just want to pick your brain and I'll give you like 20 minutes of free coaching. And I was
Mhm.
like, I wanted 10 people and like 80 signed up. So I was like, all right, well, that's a good sign.
Yeah, that's incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, Alex, what about you in terms of validating the concept of customer success excellence or CS excellence awards?
Well, yeah, as I said, part of the validation was the putting the website out there and realizing I had then committed myself to do this, right? Because
Yeah.
as I mentioned, my thinking went about as far as getting something out there, and then you kind of have to do it to make it happen. For me, the reason I kind of say it so cynically is I didn't know how to run an event, right? I mean, we're an events business, right? It's an in-person awards event. We don't do anything virtual. Um, so that was really interesting. I think the first validation simply came from the vibrancy of the community, speaking to those
Mhm.
CS leaders, in these kind of networking sessions, and maybe just being a little bit frustrated or disheartened by the fact that there were so many well qualified voices that just weren't participating or weren't being invited to participate. And
Mhm.
Rachel, I'm sure you hear from plenty of those voices in your coaching sessions, for example, right? There
I
must be
do.
great things that are happening that aren't being talked about. And fair enough, not everybody wants to kind of post long form LinkedIn posts all the time, and that's not a requirement. But given the newness of the CS community, I felt that we needed kind of like a pedestal to bring forward those voices that are maybe more qualified to be in the conversation than some other voices. right? Because, I think there's an element of once you show up on one podcast, you get invited to the next podcast and the next one. And there's kind of the speaker circuit that's kind of automatically created itself. But then there's all these voices that maybe have better things to share.
Mhm.
So that was really kind of the main, like, I don't know, elevator pitch. And it really resonated with me speaking to all these leaders one-on-one and learning about what they're doing and not really knowing where I could go to find that information. Because I said before, those vendor specific conferences are great, but the speakers are usually customers of the vendor, right? And
Right.
where is that kind of place we can get this unbiased view in what excellence and customer success looks like? That was a little bit of the validation. I mean, in terms of the actual business, that's kind of the mission side of it.
Yeah.
In terms of the business side, I had 2 years before we could ever think about doing in-person events. So I had plenty of time to kind of go around and, we're a sponsor driven event. So plenty of time to share the mission with sponsors. I was really blown away with how well that resonated with vendors.
Yeah.
I'm not directly attacking their conferences, but I think also for them, there's not vendor agnostic events they can throw marketing dollars at. And actually they want to talk to, as much as they love to talk to their customers, they probably also want to talk to people that aren't their customers.
Right.
Right. So I think there's a really compelling sponsorship opportunity that materialized in just kind of starting to have the conversation and pitch the concept early on in the business, in the journey with the business as well. And I was pleasantly surprised by that. I was pleasantly unsurprised when I realized all of the costs required to actually launch an event in person. But thankfully, those things kind of netted out successfully so far. So that's good.
Awesome. I'm curious, did either of you do what's called a poor man's business plan? Where you or a poor man's copyright, where you write out your business plan and then you mail it to yourself?
Never heard of that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
I did
that.
I did that and I still have this envelope. I hope it's worth something. If anyone ever tried to took my business concept. But yeah, I got that advice from some other another angel actually, who is in our group. And I also did like a SWOT analysis. I spoke to you both and ran a SWOT analysis for CS Angel. I don't know if you remember that. But I found that really helpful in validating CS Angel. But I probably could have also just gone without it. I think part of it was like me proving to myself that I could do it in that process. But yeah, it sounds like for you two is a bit more organic in terms of like you just saw the demand, just went straight to it.
I started
Rachel.
I started an LLC like right off the bat. I
Yeah.
had made a joke about my name one day, like with a hashtag Provan Success.
Proven success.
And I was like, this is cute. That's catchy. Like I'm a super nerd for puns. My dad told amazing puns and now I love them. It's like his legacy for me. So I was like, that's kind of funny. So I just went ahead and I like bought the domain.
Yeah.
And once I started to build it out, I was like, how much is it to do an LLC? Fine, done. And I did all of that myself, which is worthwhile doing unless you're in New York City like me, because there are different things that you have to do in terms of publication. So if anyone is in NYC, I'll tell you how to get around like the $2,000 publication fee where you have to advertise in newspapers that, hey, there's a new LLC. Only place you have to do that. But yeah, I did that. I took a bunch of courses basically to learn how to do this. I took, a course in how to like get your first clients and build your business. I took a course in how to launch a group program. I took courses in marketing. I took courses in, and this is why I created, this newer program, because I spent a lot of money. I spent over $30K to learn how to do this.
Wow.
But I learned how to do it to the extent that it paid me back well, every single time it paid me back. But that is too high a bar for people to have to do. And I don't think that's right. I want to make this available for anyone who wants to do it. But that's really what I followed. I followed every step I was told to do. This would not have happened if I was just like, let me Google it. No, I mean, there's a lot to do. And especially, it's so funny. I don't know if other people experience this, but I'm a decent writer. I'm a very CS person, very, empathetic and everything. I'm a terrible copywriter, or at least I was. I had to learn all about that and get around the idea of charging, even though I was great on like upsell, cross sell back when I was a CSM. Like I had to get around that of it being me. I had to get around marketing because I was like, oh my God, but what if I can't do this for everyone ever, anywhere? What if like they don't show up and I don't, and then they think they can't. Like I had to get over there's so much mental crap. But yeah, I definitely followed other people's instructions. I did not just poof it.
Yeah, yeah, and the legal financing and accounting side of things, I think we should touch on that because it's not like easy. If
No.
you either have to pay someone who knows
Yeah.
it, or you have to do what you did and like go and learn about it and spend money learning to the point where you can take that responsibility. I personally found an accountant and a lawyer to help me.
Oh, I have them now.
Yeah.
I realized I hate this part.
Yeah.
So
It
someone
also
else do it.
depends on the kind of business that you're going for, right? I'm
Yes.
doing investing, so I definitely need
Yeah, you need a
a lot of
lawyer.
support in these both accounting and legal
Yeah.
areas. But like Alex, what about you with your business? What kind of legal, financial, accounting support do you have?
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. I think the nature of my business is it's sprint based, right? So we'll run an awards program and we kind of work backward from 3 to 6 months from that, and then I kind of collapse in a heap and rest, and then it starts again. So we're kind of sprinting laps with copious recovery periods, which is obviously a little bit different than kind of the full time long slog, so to speak. So the first event, I kind of did it myself and tried to figure stuff out. I have a memory of me. I was traveling for work and I had to stay over the weekend, and I sat in a bar in the back corner of a bar, having some nice cocktails, trying to do my annual accounts, and I sat there for the entire opening hours trying to figure it out, googling, doing it. So that's like a very thirst quenching but terrible memory of trying to get it done myself. So, I mean, I definitely learned a lot. I created my own QuickBooks. My approach is much more kind of screw it, I'll do it. Let me try and figure it out myself. And then, when we kind of hit the brick wall, I feel like I know a lot more about accounting now, but not 100% of what I need to know. So I have an accountant, and there's some pretty good, at least, so I'm based in the UK, and there's some good outsource accounting firms that kind of know UK accounting law in virtual locations, and that's been really helpful for me because I don't need a full-time person, right? I need it for just this period and that period, and then there's very few transactions going through the business. Legal side, I happen to live next door to a lawyer, so that was very helpful and free, or a bottle of wine, so that was helpful. But if that was super lucky. I also had I did some networking with folks who've run event businesses that sent me a few contract templates. So it wasn't writing something from scratch, but rather revising something. And I don't know if I win or lose the kind of buzzword bingo, but you can also get very draft agreements in ChatGPT that are 90% of the way compliant. So there's the buzzword. And then, but you get a lawyer to look at the rest. And it's funny actually. This is not the purpose of the webinar, but that's what some lawyers are doing today as well. So you may as well not get charged full rate. You can bring them something that they can then amend. And that was helpful.
Yeah. But obviously we are not financial experts or legal experts. So these are just our opinions.
LegalZoom is good though. Like LegalZoom is a really decent, like, cause I can say for coaching, consulting, digital products, which is like my little world, it's a lot less complicated. Like you need contracts for the people who are going to be in your program. You need NDA, like I get NDAs so that everyone feels comfortable talking in a group setting. But outside of that, there's not, outside of the initial LLC and the annual filings, like I have a registered agent so that my mail goes somewhere other than my house, because you have to put your address in. That was something that you learn. You have to put your address, your actual address, in all your emails. So no, but it's much lower cost than like a business like either of yours. So I do have an accountant though, because I tell with all of the educational stuff I take, it's all tax deductible. There's so much that's tax deductible that I'm like, here, I'll pay you lots of money and I will pay, like, I've never paid so little in taxes. Oh my God. It was really nice.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. I think on the the legal and accounting side of things, it tends to be most costs upfront and then less over time as you start to learn what you're doing. So would you agree? Has that been your experience?
Yeah, yes, I think so. And just to piggyback off Rachel, what you mentioned, you have the kind of the NDA as your standard, and I think also the agreement with the client. For us, it's literally just one quite long sponsorship agreement that covers transfer. Our big challenge is transfer of personal data because if you opt in, you have transfer all of the emails that of people who actually join the events. We had kind of the fun GDPR complications, but once that was done and written, you know, nobody's really redlining agreements. They're just signing, which is nice. So that was useful.
Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty, so let's talk about like less boring stuff, I guess. Important that we've covered.
You can wake up now.
But let's talk about growth. So when did you start to experience growth? Rachel, you kind of talked a little bit about the fact that it came all at once. Can you dive into that for us?
Yes. Telling all sorts of stories about myself out of school. I always will. So I told you sales was tricky, and that there was a lot of interest up front. I think I had 31 failed sales calls because I was so freaking uncomfortable, and I was trying to follow scripts that I had seen. And I mean, of course, I took a course in selling this kind of thing, and that did help. But I tried winging it before. No, I give too much away. I'm a classic CS person in this. Like, I just try to coach for free and hope that they'll see value out of it and want. No, and that's not how it works. It's like giving somebody a full meal outside of a buffet and being like, want to come in for the food now that you've tried the sample? It's like, well, no, but thanks. Like, I'm good. So I really had to learn the rules so I could break them. Because finally, after that 31st, I was like, screw it. I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to sit there and listen to that person and empathize and just tell them what I have available and see. And from then on, I got like an 80% close rate, which is insane.
Wow.
Yeah. But I also got to the point where I was like, I could practically hold up flashcards of what you're going to say next. Like, and this, like, yes, you're my ideal client. Welcome. So, but again, like it was a really slow trickle, but it's like I made, for the first time in many years, I did not make six figures in my first year. Like I'll be out there. I made about 50K, because I only had about 6 months of work and I was gearing up. And then this year I'm on track, by the end of the second year, I think I'll be on track to double my corporate salary. So
that's incredible.
It is. It's really fun. It was not something that I expected. I was like, all right, I may have to live on a little less, but when you go with what you're meant to do, I think it really, people can feel that and people buy into it. But it was not necessarily what I expected.
Wow. Inspirational, Rachel. So, like, did you say it was 6 months before you kind of got the pitch nailed, and then things really changed after that? Okay.
I had, and thank God I was listening to so much mindset stuff. Anyone who's worked with me, anyone who reads my stuff knows a lot. I talk a lot about mindset. I talk a lot about psychology, mental health, all of that. That is a large component of everything I do because it's just who I am. It's what I nerd out over, and it's how I see the world and how people and things work. So thank God I was listening to all this mindset stuff about it and how, like, no, you don't want to skip over this part of your business where you're not getting it because you don't want to miss that moment when it switches over because it feels all the more amazing for that. And just know it's coming. You have to know it's coming. Like, don't keep doing the same thing, keep trying things. But I also had a coach, ever since I got a coach, I'm like addicted because it has always paid me back almost immediately. And it's like a time collapser. But my coach said to me, like, look, your success is inevitable. Just keep trying different things. Like, it's not failure, it's data. So do it, pivot, do it, pivot, like learn from each thing. You either get the result you wanted or you get the lesson you needed to move it a little bit closer next time. And that was such a help. I definitely needed some encouragement sometimes, but I would say just like the difference in how I feel about myself from when I was working, as a CS leader at startups where they didn't necessarily get CS that well. I could trudge through and I could make that progress, but it's amazing how far you can go when your hands aren't tied anymore, And I think it's really easy to forget. CS people tend to be really smart, really empathetic. We tend to be really good students. And it's easy for your confidence to take a big hit, especially in times like now where it's like, you couldn't do everything. You couldn't save the entire economy. We don't have 140 NRR after your 2 CSMs. Something is very wrong with you. You're a disappointment. So just seeing proof of like, oh yeah, I can do stuff. Like I can be really effective. It kind of reminded me like, this is who I am. That I was doing a good job. Like, but we have a Slack channel where everybody agrees, where we talk, it's like, this is how CS is. Yes, I'm not crazy. No. Okay. We all agree this is how it works. And then you go into like a company that doesn't get it, and it's like they look at you like you have 3 heads, or like all you can talk about is theory, because it's not just add water. So I will say, just even if you're not thinking of going all in like I did, and I didn't stop my job hunt until I realized like I couldn't work now if I wanted to. I'd have to fire all my clients, and never. But yeah, like it took a while. It took a while.
Thank you for sharing that, Rachel. I think a lot of people here kind of resonating with the
Yeah.
hands being tied and just
Yeah.
feeling like they could go so much further if they were more in
Yeah.
control of their destiny.
Yeah. So even if you just do a little thing, even if you sell one template and that's it ever, just that dose of like, that's right, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like
It feels
people see
good to
value
build
in me.
something.
Yeah,
It's
it really
good to
is.
build
It
something.
really
It
is.
does. Alex, when did you start to see that momentum?
Yeah, sure. And I'll answer that, but just Rachel, I really like that statement, around just really putting something out there and it's either a success or a lesson. And I think that was really kind of the attitude that I had also with the awards. I think it's a more positive way to spin I put a website out there, now I got to do something. Very similarly, let's just start. And, making the website was super clarifying. We wrote down our mission statement, and that really resonated. And you kind of, as you build the foundation brick by brick, you start to see the thing that you're building, the structure that you're building pretty early. And that was really rewarding. In terms of growth and momentum, I mean, as I said, we had a 2-year, let's call it, waiting period to just kind of slowly, let's call it, slow burn the momentum with folks. But I think, in hindsight, I think I used that time really well. Firstly, the office hours was very clarifying, just this networking. Everybody wants to talk to other CS leaders. So I was always kind of talking about this concept and idea, and that, got some people interested. I think I'm going to use a generous term. I am not in marketing, but I'll call it guerrilla marketing, because I think that's what it kind of was. For at least half a year, every day, or this is so long ago now, so I'll spare the details. Around every day or every week, I can't remember, I would post. I had this like very procrastinating habit, which I'm sure many of you can resonate with. Articles on LinkedIn sound super interesting. You don't have time to read it, so you save it and you go and read it later, except you don't actually read it later. So I had a vault. I called it the vault. So reporting live from the vault every day or week, whatever it was, I would post an article from the vault. And some of these were like 2 years old, right? Like from like, it's 2020. It's an article from 2018. Like I'm trying to tag the company. The company went bankrupt. It doesn't even exist anymore. Like that's like.
It's because you didn't read it in time.
Yeah.
It's my fault.
Yeah.
I would have converted. I would have bought the thing. Oh my gosh, exactly. I have a lot of skulls in my closet. What's the right word? Skeletons in my closet. That's the one. But so I started just posting that. I was pretty open and raw about the fact that I don't actually read this stuff, and I thought I would share my journey of trying to learn things with the community. Let's call it. So I would post every day ish, and it would be the hashtag vault. And at the end of every post, I would have hashtag customer success excellence. And I would tell people, follow customer success excellence hashtag to make sure you catch every post from the vault. At that time, I knew that's what I was going to call the awards, but I hadn't launched it yet. So I think I got maybe like 300 or something followers. Somebody can go and check. It's probably less than that. But I got a certain amount of followers on the hashtag. And then when we launched the awards officially, we used that hashtag going forward. So I had this kind of organic audience that was, let's say, captive from that experience. So guerrilla marketing is generous, but that's kind of the approach that we took. And it also helped me grow my network as well in a time where everybody was kind of leaning into the community. So that's how it started, let's say. I also on the website very early had a register interest option. It's very simple: name, email address, London or San Francisco, which event do you want to join? And I'm just getting a steady flow of potential people that would attend. And that was really helpful. So that started to take off. And then I would join different podcasts and really start pitching this idea. And then with that groundswell and that data, right? What's my website traffic? How many people following us on LinkedIn and Twitter? How many email addresses have registered interest? I had that data to then go and talk to sponsors. So it was kind of, obviously I had like a year and a half to make that happen because of the very strange 100 years, pandemic situation. But doing that kind of, what's the right word? Organic growth approach, let's call it. And then being able to take that credibility to potential sponsors really helped us accelerate sponsorship. So in terms of like growth and sponsor dollars, we, put a date in the diary. This is when we're going to do it. And like 6 months before that date, I started pitching all the CS vendors. I don't know what's more valuable. Eventually, one day when I sell potentially the business, I don't know if the business is more valuable or my Rolodex of emails for CS sponsorships because I have a lot of them. So, it's a package deal to those of you that are listening. But, I started really just building that CRM and just perfecting the pitch. I think it was helpful. The mission really resonated, I think, organically with the community. So there wasn't like too much, let's say, selling. It was like, do you want to be involved or not? And I think one of the big tactics for me was also getting the first sponsor. Two tactics. Once I got the first sponsor, this kind of fear of missing out. Oh, so-and-so are doing it. I can say Inside it was our first ever sponsor. Pretty big name. It's known, right? They're doing it. Who else is going to do it, right? Oh, we need to be seen to be following along. And then the second piece as well was we partnered with a customer conference. Actually, the customer conference is what it's called. We partnered with them for the first event. And then we partnered with Pulse, Gainsight Pulse conference for the second event. So you had this like really organic cross-sell opportunity of go to this event and stay for the evening awards. And that was a nice way to kind of tap into larger marketing channels. And frankly, as much as I'd love to see everyone for an evening gala dinner, you're not going to fly from a different location for an event in the evening. So it also, we had an organic pool of people already traveling to market to, and that really helped the acquisition of attendees, which then of course helped us drive more sponsorship conversion as well.
Awesome. So I think from the sounds of it, like it might have looked like it kind of all took off at once for both of you, but there was a lot of foundational work being done both intrinsically and out there in the community as well.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it was a slow burn, I think. It's a fair summary. And yeah, as I said, I think it was because I was balancing it with the day job, like that's probably the only way that this could have taken off. I think that was the way it had to be, and thankfully the way it worked out.
Yeah. Do you now like look back and think, oh gosh, I wish I did this sooner? Do either of you have that feeling?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
There are times that I know in my life where I thought about doing something similar and started on that path, and then I was like, no, I want my safety, I want my corporate job, I want my steady paycheck, and that is it an allegory? I don't know the right word, but the thing about like the first time God throws a pebble and then he throws a rock and he throws a boulder, I had to keep getting hit by rocks, and really, get bouldered to be like, I get it. I was supposed to go this way. You're trying to drive me this way, so like whether it's a religious inference or not, it's like, this is where I was meant to go. This is who I was meant to be. But I needed every single one of those lessons.
I love that.
Yeah, I think for me, so do I. And I think for me, it's more just a flat no. I think there's an element, and I think we'll get to it a little bit later in our session, but there's an element of like, I need to be at a certain place in my career to have the network and the credibility, I guess, to really kind of do a CS event that, how do I put this in the right way? I knew a lot of the companies already. They, may or may not have worked or spoken with me in the past. So there was kind of an element of, not having to go from a standing start to pitch the sponsorship. I think also, we'll talk about the balance between day job and hustle, I think is the word we've landed on, in a minute. But like, I don't think I could have done that as a CSM, for example,
Right.
because I probably
Right.
wouldn't have had, I probably wouldn't have gotten permission from my company, potentially, and I would want to focus 100% of my time and effort on advancing my career instead of kind of having a bit more of a portfolio. That's not to say that having a side hustle doesn't advance your career, but for me, running an event where I have to kind of like dive really deep for a month during event planning season, I'm not sure I could have afforded to do that any earlier.
Right.
To be fun.
So let's dive into that, because I think a lot of people here are, oh, and Alex, you just
Not back.
reappeared. So a lot
Hello.
of people here are like going through that whole thing as that you described, which is like, I'm already employed, but I have this idea. What kind of things should they be looking for if they are fully employed somewhere and want to start a side hustle?
Is that I can start. I don't know
Yeah.
who you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's, still technically my situation. I do think there's an element of trying something and figuring out how. I'm, people are different, right? Some people like to plan. I am not one of those people. So there's an element of just diving in and seeing how you can balance it.
Mhm.
I obviously depends on what the business or the side hustle is, right? If it's advisory, if it's, maybe I think, Rachel, you mentioned selling templates. I see a lot of people doing that now, which I think is brilliant. That doesn't take a huge amount of time. And once it's online, it's just there, right? So I don't want people to kind of hear what I'm saying and take it as like a declarative, don't do a side hustle like statement. It's more, I think, figuring out, trying it. If it doesn't work, you haven't spread it across the universe, it's fine to kind of wind it down or put it on pause.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first piece, right? Until you're in there understanding how it works with your day job, it's hard to know hypothetically, I think. And for me, there's an element of discipline, an important element of discipline around, I've got my day-to-day job hours and I've got my side hustle hours, and they don't really mix. And it actually helped me. I mean, we'll talk a bit about kind of lessons learned, but it definitely helped me be better in my day job because I was much more focused. Okay, I actually don't need to join that meeting. Somebody else can do it, right? And it made me really focus on what I was doing to make time to try and balance it. So I kind of feel like I optimized my kind of schedule or disbursement of time in a better way as well. But just lastly, I think that the most important thing is that you're transparent. Hiding any of this from your company doesn't usually end very well. Most employment contracts prohibit this type of thing. Especially, it can get in situations where if you do the work on the work laptop, work technically is like partially owning the content and the IP. So, I had a really transparent relationship and said, look, I'm active in the community and this is something I want to do to give back. And I'm planning to do this. I didn't ask, I told, but at the end of the day, at least HR has been informed. So if it ever comes up, you kind of have your bases covered there as well. And, to Rachel's point, if they're super declarative that that's not okay, maybe that's a boulder or a rock that you needed to go and jump out and realize maybe this isn't the right place for you to flourish as a multifaceted individual, right?
Yes.
I think that's important as well.
Absolutely.
And some things around that, because even though I was in a position when I started writing online, and some people within the same company were really into it, and some people were like, that's sketchy, what are you doing? I was like, do you see how many followers I have? That's people whose eyes are on your business. That's people who are applying for these jobs when I put a name out there, when I put a position out there, because they want to work with me because I'm an authority on this and because they know I'm a really nice boss and I promote people. But like, this cannot hurt you. It's just showing that I'm an authority on what you hired me for. It makes you look good. So there's that. It can get a little bumpy where if you're like wanting to consult for other companies, because then your company's going to feel butthurt. Like, why aren't you spending all your attention on us? So that can be a little difficult. What I would say is look at your contract, because they do not own your social media. They cannot tell you what to post. They cannot tell you what not to post, though they can have certain things where it's like, if you post anything offensive, we can fire you. Like where you make us look bad. But you're talking about like, hey, I'm a thought leader because I say so on this one thing. And like, here's what I have to say about it. And here's how I can help. Like, it doesn't really have anything to do with them. And check your local laws about what rights you have. I know California is incredibly on the side of the individual versus the company. And New York is as well, surprisingly. But it's worth checking those things, seeing if other people have done that kind of thing. And if you're really someone who wants to start this and you're like, it's okay to start something that isn't CS based. I have people that I'm talking to who are doing things with marketing. I have people I'm talking to who are doing things with like mindset. You know, you could do it on like manifestation for all I care. I can help with any of that. The business model, like the things you have to do are the same. Maybe the platform's a little different. Like you're probably going to use Instagram or TikTok or one of those if you're doing something like that, as opposed to LinkedIn for business. But anyone has to diversify at this point because LinkedIn is not helping us. But that's really where you're going to be doing it. And as long as you keep it niche-y enough where it's not like, I will just advise everyone on customer success, which you can do if you don't have a job. There's that fine line. But I've found that, you know, coaching and digital products, not the consulting, don't tend to butt heads too much with that.
Yeah.
And you are good at other things besides CS, by the way. Remember that.
That's a good point. Just super quickly, one thing I did that this reminded me of is I set my point. You know, once I got permission from HR, I invited my boss basically to say, look, if you ever feel that my delivery is slipping, have that conversation with me, like upfront, right? Because, you know, it's the worst thing is, you know, people are silently resentful that you've taken this plunge and they, for some reason, are blaming that for some, you know, perceived performance degradation, which probably is the same as you were doing. It's just now they're looking at it with a different lens. Openly inviting that conversation, I think, is important. So you can own that. No, this, you know, you can own that narrative, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But that was really productive because it meant that it wasn't kind of a me and then my side project. It was, you know, or my business and the side project. It was very much a collaboration and an open conversation. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I think transparency is key. And like, you know, Chitresh was working with me when he started building Snooze. You know, we had that conversation. I think if you find the right leader who wants you to succeed as a whole person, then you should be okay. But you obviously have to commit to ensuring it doesn't impact your day job. And I think I love the way, Alex, that you said that you asked your boss to like hold you accountable if he ever felt that it did. And I think, you know, just saying up front, like, if I'm doing this in addition to my day job, this isn't going to impact my day job. This is going to be my evenings, my weekends thing. This is going to be like my hobby. You know, some people watch sports and follow sports. This is what I do, right? Like, but yeah,
I'll
go
add one thing there because, first of all, in addition to that, if you are being transparent, because I'm going to go a little different route with this, if you are being transparent, I'm a big fan of tracking your accomplishments. I have an accomplishment tracker on my website.
I love that, yeah.
Because you want to be able to say, and these are all the things I've done, even since that started. So I'm still very passionate about this. I'm still having a big impact, and you always want to know and be able to show people what impact you're making in their business. Because you're going to know what you're doing in your own, but, you know, people are focused on themselves. There's nothing wrong with them, but that will help you. You know, you want hard evidence and data, just like you do with CS. I am going to go a little bit outside of the transparency thing. I think that's ideal if you're in the kind of company where, and you have the kind of leaders where you can do that. I think right now, a lot of people are in situations where they don't feel they can leave because of the economy, and they don't feel like they'd be supported, and they really feel like they're stuck in a really untenable situation. I would say in that case, pick something outside, completely unrelated, and start with that. Because they really can't give you a hard time for being like, I talk about how to get babies to sleep. How is this any of your business? You know, like they can't.
Yeah.
So, but you are entitled to your private life, your private business. They are only entitled to you for certain hours. You do not owe them more than that. They're not paying you for more than that, and they're not going to. So, you know, don't have an outsized sense of loyalty that they don't have for you.